Okay.
On January 7th, 2013, adequate notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act has been furnished by inclusion thereof in the annual schedule of meetings for 2013, which has been posted on the bulletin board at Borough Hall, filed with Borough Clerk, faxed to the Hour Town, the record of the community news from the county seat newspapers, and distributed all persons, if any, requesting copies of the same pursuant to said act. In case of an emergency or fire alarm, you must evacuate the building by using any of the exit doors in the room. They're immediately to my right, and the double doors at the rear of the room. Occupants must exit the building by using the staircase and not the elevator. This meeting is being recorded by both video and audio and may be rebroadcast.
Please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Padovano.
Here.
Council members: Maroney,
Here.
Eisenberg,
Here.
Neglia,
Here.
Ballerini,
Here.
Fleischman is absent. Fabre,
Here.
Borough Attorney Ronald Dario,
Here.
Borough Clerk Jean Pellegro is here. Borough Administrator Roberta Stern is absent.
Councilman Fleischman and Borough Administrator Stern are evidently under the weather with the flu. But let's go through this for anything to be added or detracted from the agenda. Mr. Maroney. Anything to add or detract from the agenda?
No.
Mr. Eisenberg.
No.
Okay. Dr. Meglio.
No, Ms. Mayor.
Councilman Ballerini.
I have nothing tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Council President Fabre.
Nothing, sir.
Borough Attorney.
Nope.
Borough Clerk.
No, sir.
Okay. And now I will entertain a motion to adjourn until 8:15, the regular meeting time. Anybody want to make that motion?
Move adjourn.
To 8:15.
Second.
Hang on a second.
Roll.
Maroney,
Here.
Eisenberg,
Yes.
Neglia,
Yes.
Ballerini,
Yes.
Fleischman, Fabre.
Yes.
Okay, we're back at 8:15.
Looks like the White House.
On January 7th, 2013, adequate notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act has been furnished by inclusion thereof in the annual schedule of meetings for 2013, which has been posted on the bulletin board at Borough Hall, filed with the Borough Clerk, faxed to the Hour Town, the records of community news, and the county seat newspapers, and distributed all persons, if any, requesting copies of same pursuant to said act. In case of emergency or fire alarm, you must evacuate the building by using any of the exit doors in the room. They're immediately to my right, and the double doors at the rear of the room. Occupants must exit the building by using the staircase and not the elevator. This meeting is being recorded by both video and audio and may be rebroadcast.
Okay, in lieu of our invocation today, and before we do the roll call, it's been a tough month for Maywood. A lot of families have lost members. A lot of Maywoodians have passed. Certainly not more notable than the others, but George Brush, who was a planning board member and chairman of the planning board for about 29 years, Barbara Moran, mother of one of our officers and a long-time Maywoodian, and Lorraine Kendall, who's the mother of our dispatcher, Norm Kendall. So if we could take a moment and remember all the members of Maywood who have passed this month. Thank you. Roll call.
Mayor Padovano.
Here.
Council members: Maroney,
Here.
Eisenberg,
Here.
Neglia,
Here.
Ballerini,
Here.
Fleischman is absent. Fabre.
Here.
Borough Attorney Ronald Dario,
Here.
Borough Clerk Jean Pellegro is here. Borough Administrator Roberta Stern is absent.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to go out of order on the agenda to the appointments. To appointment number 1 for Timothy G. Cook as a probationary police officer effective January 22, 2013. An annual salary identified in the agenda and falling under the new contract provisions with the police department. I will entertain a motion to approve that appointment at this time.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Maroney?
Yes.
Eisenberg?
Yes.
Meglia?
Yes.
Ballerini?
Yes.
Sedray?
Yes.
If I can ask Councilman Ballerini to join me at the front, and I can ask Police Chief to bring up Mr. Cook. Administer the oath. Place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. Timothy Cook.
I, Timothy Cook,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
to support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same
and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States
in the United States
and in this state
and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly
and justly
perform all the duties
perform all the duties
of the Maywood Police Officer
of a Maywood police officer
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Okay, we're doing this on. Yeah, just right. Okay, thank you. All right.
Go with one more picture here for Patty's not here, so maybe get a little closer to go. Here we go. Let me go one more time because somebody was pointing out. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thanks so much.
Congratulations. Bye. Happy birthday. All right, before we move on to the agenda, I thank all the members of the Maywood Police Department who were present with us today. Obviously, we welcome Officer Cook to the force. I understand his daughter's birthday is coming up, and he will be working that day at the Borough of Maywood, so sorry about that. Next item, we go back to the regular agenda. Mr. Frank Cavelli, the risk manager. Provide us with the annual report.
Good evening to you all. Before you is our annual report, and I'm going to the report's laid out in its normal manner with respect to the recent developments in the fund statistics, a synopsis of property and casualty coverage, lost time accident frequencies, and financial information about the health of the funds. I'm going to refer you to page 2, and then I'm going to refer you to the memo on the left-hand side, because the first item that we need to talk about is an action item with respect to your employment practices liability, public officials liability coverage. This coverage has been with the Excel Insurance Company since 2011, and for 2013 they are offering you various deductible and co-insurance options for your consideration. You'll see at the top that your current premium for this coverage is $20,099.86 for 2013, and your current deductible is $20,000 with a 20% co-insurance of the first $250,000 of the claim. And I'll put that in English. You have a $20,000 deductible, and you have a $50,000 exposure for a claim that's $250,000 or more. So the borough's total exposure is $70,000. As I said, this is for a claim arising out of, with respect to the employment practices liability, a prospective, current, or past employee that would sue for failure to hire, failure to promote, discrimination, including sexual harassment and harassment, etc. Public officials, it's covering the governing body for any decisions that you make, all of the land use boards, and all of the various boards and commissions operating within the municipality. The good news is that that premium is flat from 2012, and as I said to you, there are several options. If you look at the highlighted option, which is second from the bottom being your current program, Excel is offering you to keep the deductible at $20,000. I'm on the last page, by the way, of that memo. Offering you a $20,000 deductible and 20% of the first $100,000 of the claim. So your exposure would drop from $70,000 to $40,000. And they're saying to you, if you paid them an additional $1,607 in 2013, you can transfer that $30,000 of exposure to the insurance company. I'm presenting that to you for your consideration this evening.
And that you provided us with a draft resolution, which I'll distribute if the council wants to put it on for motion tonight. But it is your recommendation that we move forward with that and adopt that resolution to adopt those numbers. The $20,000 deductible is 20% co-insurance for the first $100,000 of the claim.
Yes, and I'll explain why. Because again, you're reducing your exposure by $30,000, and if you didn't have a claim for 10 years and then had such a claim, you're still way ahead of the game. Now, I'm recommending, you'll see, and there's several alternatives here. I'd like you to go up 2 lines from the recommendation where it says a $15,000 deductible and still the the 20% co-insurance of the $250,000. So effectively, you're only shedding $5,000 of exposure. Now, albeit it's on the front end versus the back end. It's on the deductible as opposed to the co-insurance. But the insurance company wants to charge you $1,000 to do that. And why am I recommending that you reduce your co-insurance versus reducing your deductible? Deductible being up front, co-insurance is on the back end. And I'm doing that because in these types of cases, and I know of at least 2 attorneys sitting on that dais that can back up what I'm saying, these cases are very expensive to defend. They're he said, she said cases. When we talk about the cost of the claim, it not only includes your defense or the defendant's defense, it includes the plaintiff's attorneys if the plaintiff has any kind of merit to their claim. So the chances of this being a $250,000 claim is certainly within the realm, and that happens more times than not. And again, as we talked about in our training tonight, you've seen these types of cases in other municipalities around the county and around the state. So I think it's most cost-effective, Mayor, to reduce that co-insurance by $30,000 for a annual premium of $1,607, $1,608 if I round. But ultimately, Mayor, it's what your tolerance is for that deductible. I've had towns that take, the $10,000 deductible with no car insurance for $5,800, for example. And by the way, these rates are very attractive because of this municipality's very good loss experience in this area. and because you have an approved loss control plan, as we talked about before. But dollar for dollar, I think that reducing that co-insurance is, if nothing else, a very wise option.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question? Mr. Velli, the date on this is November 6th,
Yes.
2012. When do we need to provide an answer for, oh, I'm sorry, is it here on the bottom here, the cutoff date for the member entity to opt for an alternative deductible or alternative co-insurance contribution is 2/1/13.
Right, for an effective date back to 1/1.
That's what I thought I saw.
Yeah.
Why wasn't the council presented with this before tonight?
This was actually mailed by the fund to the municipality. And what I've been doing is going around and talking to everyone, because I think, quite frankly, the memo is a little confusing, the way it's written there.
The memo was just distributed in a packet.
Okay, I'm just, I appreciate the opportunity to do this. It just seems we could have had a little more chance to consider it before being asked to act on it.
Understood.
Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
do we have another meeting before that deadline?
For the first. No, for the first, February.
I'm sorry, I thought I heard the 13th. What was that?
You have until February 1st to make a decision, but the decision will be honored by Excel back to January 1st, bless you, 2013.
If it is acted upon on the February 12th meeting.
Then it would become effective from that day forward.
So in essence, we'd be gambling that nothing has happened from the 1st until the 15th.
Correct.
So,
Well, just to follow, finish my thought, I have no issue with approving it. Just, again, if this came across in a previous packet, then I missed it.
I don't have it either.
Back in November.
We all got this back in November?
Absolutely did.
What?
But,
I'm just a little new to this, and honestly, I don't quite understand it. I've got a lot of questions. I'd like to call you out and talk to you for an hour about it. I'm not ready to vote.
Well, remember that the coverage is in place as part of the municipality's renewal. So as we sit tonight, the deductible is $20,000, and there is a co-insurance of 20% of the first $250,000.
So there'll be no lapse in coverage if we decide to go into it?
Correct.
Go whatever?
Right.
It's really, if I can speak on it, it's really not that big of a deal if we don't do it tonight. I mean, this is the coverage we've had in place for a long time. We're going to keep that same coverage.
Yes. It's an opportunity. This is strictly an opportunity.
It's just adjusting the deductible.
Right. It's not like we're not going to have it, we're not really gambling. So to speak.
Correct.
I mean, if there's a suit comes in, we're going to have an additional copay, another $30,000 if we have something that comes in the next month or so.
basically, Frank, you're just saying it's another $1,600 a year.
Correct.
Is there anything else to this that we need to know?
To reduce the exposure of $30,000, no.
I mean, I think it's...
Because I also don't overly want to complicate it for anyone. That's all that's on the table.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you bring it down to its bare bones, it's a no-brainer. It's really something that we should do. In my opinion, I'm not voting on it, but I'll give you my opinion. It's really something we should do.
Yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot of challenge to it. My point was simply just administrative. It had nothing to do with the value of the additional coverage. My other question, I guess, would be, this represents a closing of the max gap, right? That $30,000 that you referenced, that exposure, that would only be for claims that reach that $250,000 threshold.
Correct.
If the claim was $100,000, our exposure is still
20% of the 100.
20% of the 100,000.
Right. But that's why I told you what the insurance is considering a component of the claim. It's not just what, for example, the settlement was. It would be the attorney's, your attorney's fees.
Their attorney's fees.
And potentially their attorney fees as well, if the claimant had any merit to their claim, and we had to satisfy that.
So the current premium is $2,100, we'd be going
No, it's,
Current premium is $20,100 if you want to round.
14 cents, I'm comfortable with that. So, yeah, I'll go with $20,100, and this would take it to $20,200. I'm sorry.
no, it's an additional
$21,000.
Right.
$780. Okay, so this is a nominal increase for the kind of protection that we're talking about.
For a notable reduction in your exposure. You're transferring a lot of risk to them for very little premium. Again, given the good experience of the municipality. Unfortunately, these types of claims, even in well-run municipalities, these types of claims emerge. So I think it's fair to say this municipality is not going to go 10 or 15 years without one of these claims.
Can you explain that front and back end? I mean, I know what a deductible is, but what about the co-insurance and the back end?
So let's say we had a claim, and what's going to happen, I'll go through the mechanics of a claim. So if you received a complaint and a claim, it gets filed with Excel Insurance Company. The first thing they're going to do is assign, and it's a covered claim. Let's keep the discussion simple. They're going to assign counsel, and as counsel responds to the complaint, and there's discovery and the like, they're going to bill you the full cost of the claim till you get to $20,000. Okay?
goes fast.
Which goes relatively fast. And then from that point forward, for every dollar spent, they're billing you 20 cents. So they might do that on $5,000 or $10,000 increments. In the cost of the claim, they're going to bill the municipality to 20%, and you're going to pay it. And then at some point, there's probably some kind of settlement offer put on the table, and the parties debate that, or your counsel says, no, the municipality did absolutely nothing wrong in this, and we should bring this, if necessary, we should bring this to trial, and it's going to cost this, and here's your 20, and meanwhile your 20% is billing along until you get to that additional $50,000 after you paid the 20. Then the claim reverts to 100% coverage. So you have coverage in this area up to, I believe, $5 million. I have to look in your report. So if the claim settled for $2 million, your maximum exposure right now is 70. If the claim settles for $300,000, your exposure is 70. The example over here, if the claim was $100,000, it would only be 40. The $20,000 deductible, the 20% coinsurance of the first 100. That help?
Should only be 36, wouldn't it? 20, and the difference between 20 and 100 is 16,000. I don't want to complicate your math.
Okay.
But it's the 36, not 40.
You're saying of the remaining 80, correct?
Right.
Yes, that's technically correct. We should take the deductible off and then do the coinsurance. You're not paying the coinsurance on the deductible, correct?
I don't have any problem with this. I just, like Councilman Ballerini, I think would prefer to have had you here a month earlier, just in case there were. It doesn't seem to be a big deal, but
No, it's not.
in advance, I would like a little bit more time.
Fully understandable.
The day, if you don't have to.
Fully understandable. My apologies. With all due respect, this memo came out and we were in the throes of Sandy, and quite frankly, we're not out of them yet. One of the towns I insure is Moonachie, so we're deep in it, so.
So, did the borough attorney prepare the resolution?
No.
I did not.
Have you read any of the issues with it?
I did not. I read it. I didn't prepare it. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it basically just authorizes the borough administrator to sign for the additional insurance as stated through your recommendation. So I have no issue with it.
And again, Councilman, my apologies on how fast I can get here.
Your point about the timing of the memo.
Yeah. It's just been a horrible few months. We'll put it that way.
Understood.
May we live in interesting times.
And I trust that the borough clerk had it in our package, and probably, as you point out, everything else that was going on at the time. It was one of those things that we saw as, we'll deal with that when the time comes. So, thank you.
Everybody's doing triage right now.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. So we're going to go from 20% co-insurance on 250, 20% co-insurance on 100.
Correct.
So, okay, so we're talking about $30,000 less co-insurance exposure for an additional premium of $1,607.
Perfect. You got it.
So what's 1,607 divided by 30? 5%, 5% roughly?
It's an 8% increase. If you look in the column where it says debit credit,
Third one over.
it's an 8% increase on your $20,099.86 premium.
Well, that wasn't really a question, but
Well, we would have to go roughly 13 years with 0 claims for us not to have recognized the benefit of that exposure.
Correct, which is where I think you were going, Councilman. That's why I said to you, yeah.
Exactly.
Actually, you could, if it was 10 years, it would be 16,000, 15, 18 years.
Fixed number, is 1607.99, is that a fixed number?
For now, until the premium should change. But then you'll have an opportunity to reevaluate that.
I believe the offer was for 2 years. The 2-year program that we have expired.
It's actually a 1 year, and the underwriting manager told me that we may get another year extension out of them.
Yes, I misread the introduction.
Okay.
And again, if you want that on a separate vote, you don't have to vote on it right this minute. I can finish the report when you do your normal resolutions.
You could finish the report and we'll see.
Have I answered everybody with respect to this?
Yeah.
We're all good? Okay. At the bottom of page 2, the loss control program, which I talked a little bit about in our training session tonight with respect to the training of the supervisors, of the employees, and the updates to the Employee Policies and Procedures Manual. Those things all took place in 2012. About every 2 years we have to do this. And the municipality is in full compliance in accordance with the requirements of the JIF. If you go to page 3, for 2013, Excel Insurance Company is also adding cyber liability coverage. This is not a new coverage. You've kind of had pieces of this, in the public officials liability and in the general liability, but they're combining it all and putting it in one comprehensive form. They're covering you for media communications liability, network security liability, and privacy liability, as well as crisis management, extortion, threat, business interruption, and privacy notification. You maintain data both on all of your property owners or taxpayers in the municipality. You also maintain data in your system on your employees. I'm not too concerned about what you're maintaining for the taxpayers, because I believe most of that is public information, or they can get it from lots of other sources. But the employee data may have Social Security numbers, it may have other identity-sensitive materials in there, and if someone were to hack into your system and get that information, they're going to provide you monitoring on anyone whose data might have been compromised, credit monitoring data, to make sure that they're protected, which I think would calm down any kind of situation. So that's a nice addition to the program that you didn't have before. All right? This is something that we've talked about. I don't believe it's applicable to Maywood, but the EGIF was providing a grant for underground pipe testing for underground storage tanks where the piping goes to the dispensing units, and that piping is underground to make sure there's no leaks. All right? With regard to safety, we talked about this in the training session, the enhanced online training, whereby they're going to put 25% of the OSHA, POSHA required training online is in full throttle right now, and they hope to complete that by the end of 2013. They've also come out with a Fast Track for Safety program where you can send an employee, DPW laborer, for the day, and they're going to give them all of their OSHA, POSHA required training and refreshers and updates, and when that employee returns to you, they're done for 2 or 3 years. So the JIF's trying to give you different ways to minimize the disruption to your workforce to send your employees to get the OSHA or POSHA required training. All right, page 4 is for informational purposes. Page 5, and I'll run through this very quickly. Remember that the JIF is providing you replacement costs on all of your buildings and contents, extra expense coverage, including valuable papers, electronic data processing and communications equipment. They're providing you, I'm on the top of page 6, they are providing you flood coverage. Outside of the flood zone, they're providing you $1 coverage. Inside the flood zone, they are going on top of the federal flood insurance program. And they're providing you earthquake coverage, they're providing you boiler and machinery, and all of your property losses are subject to a $2,500 deductible. The boiler and machinery claims carry a deductible of $5,000. They're covering all of your physical damage on the automobile fleet and mobile equipment. When I say automobile fleet, I'm including fire apparatus, emergency ambulances, DPW trucks, police cars, municipal cars, the gamut. All right. A unique coverage of the JIF is they're providing you full replacement cost coverage on your fire apparatus on ambulances that are 15 years or newer. So if you had a 10-year-old ambulance that cost you $100,000 at the time that you bought it, and it now costs you, and that ambulance was totaled, and it costs you $150,000 to put a new ambulance of like, kind, and quality, they're going to give you the $150,000. All right? They're providing you a very unique coverage, and the volunteers in Maywood are very thankful for this. They're providing you physical damage reimbursement for your emergency service volunteers. So if they're in an at-fault accident responding to or from a call, the JIF is going to reimburse them their deductible, or in the absence of collision coverage, they're going to reimburse them up to $2,500. So all of the emergency responders the evening of Sandy and Moonachie, whose cars were flooded, they're getting either the $500 deductible or whatever their deductible is, or $2,500 in the absence of having comprehensive coverage on their vehicles. All right? Moving along to page 7, the JIF is providing you your liability coverages, your automobile liability, your general liability, medical malpractice, emergency response teams, public nurse, 911 dispatchers, and Good Samaritan. They're providing police professional or law enforcement professional liability coverage. They're providing employee benefits liability coverage. The limit of liability is listed in the middle of the page. You see how it's layered between the South Bergen JIF and the Municipal Excess Liability Joint Insurance Fund. That is done for the financial integrity of the system if there is a strain on the system statewide. And I will give you an example that Sandy, which you've heard so much about in Monmouth and Ocean counties, both of those county JIFs are in the MEL system. The claim is estimated right now to be about $40 million. The system can withstand that kind of shock and continue on. And you'll see the financial health later in our reports. That's why it is layered. Okay? The first $1 million of coverage is self-insured between the MEL and the South Bergen JIF. Beyond that, there is reinsurance treaties with commercial excess carriers, and hence the limits that you see listed. Terrorism coverage has been and continues to be provided. The excess liability layer, again, as I said, is with a conventional reinsurance policy, so there are some sublimits. You see failure to supply, riot and civil commotion, approved skateboards, and quasi-entities. If you go to page 8, there are some exclusions: asbestos, lead, pollution, dam and reservoir, watercraft over 50 feet, lawns, trees, bushes, and shrubs, and land. Sewer backup claims carry a $1,000 deductible. They're the only general liability claims that have a deductible. Public officials, which we've talked about a lot, which the limit is $5 million, and you know what the existing coinsurance and deductible were, and that you have an approved plan. I'm on the top of page 9. The JIF is providing all of your crime coverages, monies and securities, both inside and outside of premise, and you see the limit listed there. They're providing you a faithful performance and employee dishonesty blanket bond, and you see the limit listed there as well. They're providing all of your statutory bond coverages in accordance with state statute for the treasurer and tax collector, as well as the blanket bond for the municipal court, and you see the bond limits listed there. They're providing all of your requirements in accordance with the New Jersey Workers' Compensation statute. On the top of page 10, through South Bergen JIF's membership in the EJIF, or the Environmental Joint Insurance Fund, they're providing you coverage for recycling centers, petroleum storage tanks, hazmat operations, Superfund buyout. You see the limit of liability listed there, and defense costs are included in the limit of liability. There are a few policies that we secure for you that are not available through the JIF. That's an accident and health policy for the firefighters, fire police, first aid, and special police, and you see the limit listed there. There's an accident policy for volunteer workers and for the summer camp. Without question, the Joint Insurance Fund continues to provide you broader coverage than is available in the conventional market at a notable savings for the municipality. They're also providing you, and I'm on page 11, additional ancillary coverages, or services, I should say, such as the Mel Safety Institute. They're doing all of the alcohol and drug testing for the CDL operators. They're providing you environmental technical support. In Appendix A, is the 2011 lost time accident frequency for all of the Mel-affiliated joint insurance funds around the state. You see that the South Bergen lost time accident frequency for 2011 was 3 lost time accidents per 100 employees. As I said to you in training, those numbers used to be somewhere around the 8 lost time accidents per 100 employees when this system started. And you see that 2011 was a good year for the JIF. A little bit, not quite as good as 2010, but better than 2009. And I'm also going to say to you that for 2012, which you'll hear when I give the next report, the JIF did very well. There wasn't much workers' comp that came out of Sandy. Lots of property damage, but our volunteers and our employees didn't get hurt, and that's a very good thing. All right. Moving to Appendix B, you see where Maywood stacks up with the other members of the JIF, and you should be very pleased to know that Maywood is running at less than half the lost time accidency of the South Bergen Joint Insurance Fund at 1.28 lost time accidents in 2011, which I believe is your best lost time accident frequency ever. So 2011 was an exceptional year for Maywood. And you see towards the right of the page that your 3-year lost time accident frequency is running better than 1 point below the Joint Insurance Fund. I will tell you, though, that when you look at this chart, bear in mind that there are other municipalities on here that are doing things that you are not doing. So, for example, they're doing garbage collection. They may be running sewer systems and the like, so the exposures aren't exactly even between you all, but the chart kind of keeps everybody in the competition and keeps everybody striving for a better lost time accident frequency. If we go to Appendix C, the key financials as of 12/31/11, the South Bergen JIF had $9.9 million of cash on hand and a return of surplus of $18.3 million and net statutory surplus of $3.8 million. The Mel had $80 million of cash on hand, a return of surplus of $44 million and net statutory surplus of $12 million. The E-JIF having $24 million of cash on hand, $6.9 million return of surplus, net statutory surplus of $9.7 million. And RCF is the residual claims fund. That's a fund that handles very old claims to clean them up, and that fund is in the black as well. So all of the funds are in good financial shape. And lastly, Appendix D refers you to how much money Maywood has received back in the form of dividends since inception into the South Bergen JIF. And Mayor, if I may, I'll read the number aloud, which does not include the 2012 dividend, which was near the $20,956 in 2011. Total as of 12/31/2011 was $999,199.
Going to slip this an extra $801?
If you add the 2012, you're over $1 million, Mayor. And the municipality opted to receive that in a check, which you received before the close of the year in 2012.
Does that mean we'll just overcharge that? No, we'll get it back.
Well, remember what I said, that when the actuary has to formulate, he has to predict or model what he thinks the claims are going to be, and he's going to be a little conservative. But the good news is, yes, when there is a surplus left, it goes back to the members. It's not going to a CEO or any of the shareholders or you.
Where do we rank with the other members in return back?
It's the way that the fund dividends is based on your percentage of ownership for the year that's being dividended. So, you know, a larger town's going to get more money back and a smaller town will get smaller. And that concludes my report. The last page is for informational purposes. for your pleasure, and unless there are any questions, I'll excuse myself.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Crowley at this time? No.
All right. I thank you all for your time,
Thank you.
and we'll be back. And good evening to you all.
Hi, how are you? We issued an engineer's report which was dated January 17th for tonight's meeting. The first item on the list is the EIT project. Tomorrow we'll be conducting a final walkthrough with the DEP as it relates to the first 3 phases of the project, which was Magnolia, the Brook Street siphon, and Lincoln and Mendez. Subsequent to that, the project would move through the closeout phase. The second portion of the project, which relates to the pump station, I know the borough's working on funding with respect to the acquisition of the easements. We've been working with the borough engineer for the borough paramus to address any questions or comments as it relates to the metering of it. Subsequent to that, we envision the project being bid this spring and then construction occurring shortly thereafter. The second project on the list, which begins on page 2 and continues to page 3, relates to the Spring Valley project. On page 3, I discussed that we issued on January 8th a DOT project inspection letter where they will conduct their inspection as it relates to the project. In addition, on January 7th, we submitted a proposal to the borough for consideration as it relates to asphalt testing, which is necessary in the amount of $1,300 for review and potential authorization by the borough. Subsequent to both the DOT punch list, the completion of some minor punch list items with respect to the parkway in that intersection and some of the green space that needs to be addressed in that location, the project would then begin closeout. The third item relates to Borough Hall monitoring. As I mentioned last meeting, we'll continue to monitor Borough Hall. Based on the prior session in December, no settlement was exhibited, so our anticipated final session would be in early March, pending if settlement was observed at that point in time, which we don't expect to see. The fourth item relates to West Passaic Street and the pedestrian crossings that the mayor and council asked us to explore. Our office had, in December, walked the location due to some vertical curve issues, some signage issues, and locations as they relate to crossings. There are 2 potential crossings that could occur if the borough chose to proceed with those. We've also discussed with the county engineer's office the potential of providing lighting and flashing lighting for crosswalks in those areas. Based on our review of the regulations and also discussions with the county, we would not recommend the lighting because there is some anticipated litigation with respect to items in South Jersey and the issue of flashing yellow lights versus flashing red lights and the requirement of stopping at crosswalks with flashing yellow lights. There's a little bit of ambiguity and confusion could lead to lawsuits, and for that reason we wouldn't recommend it, and I don't believe the county would recommend that either. As it relates to the West Pleasant Avenue intersections, I discussed with Chief Pegg. I know he's taking a look at our design considerations, and we'll get back to us and also the mayor and council as it relates to our recommendations. The Gulf Avenue and Romaine Avenue 4-way stop sign, I spoke to Chief Pegg concerning that also. I know he's conducting the necessary counts, and then pending his counts, he would direct us to write a letter based on the information that's gathered. Patterson Avenue and the dead-end roadway potential that the mayor and council asked us to explore. We conducted some traffic counts. Based on our review, the average 24-hour weekday trips was 125 trips on Patterson Avenue, and then reduced slightly for both Saturday and Sunday, approximately 75 trips on Saturday and Sunday accordingly. We submitted that data to the chief to review, and then pending discussions with his office, the borough could proceed accordingly. The final item on our list relates to the Hergesell Avenue, the catch basin and roadway, the cones that are located at that intersection. In late November, our office issued a solicitation. We acquired some quotes. The lowest was from Montana Construction in the amount of $7,475. Being that's located in the center of the roadway and pending the availability of funds, we would recommend that the borough authorize that work to proceed. And I'd be glad to address any questions or comments that the mayor and council have.
Do we have any questions for the borough engineer?
give my report, there's one thing that you might be able to comment on, or if you want
Parkway
to...
corner, Parkway
Corner of Prospect and Hill.
Oh, okay. Right, 'cause I had a question about Parkway corner. The greenery that you're talking about.
Sure.
Is the vegetation. that
Correct.
Municipality's going to put back on those corners, right?
Exactly. That's part of the project, the restoration of the slope.
That occurred, I guess, as the weather gets better.
Yeah, it would occur when the weather gets better, because if you look at, if you put topsoil and seed, it wouldn't take until the spring, until the grass grows. So I think the slope has been stabilized so that we don't have any erosion issues during the winter, but the contractor is going to be required to come back and address that accordingly.
You want to go ahead
Hit
and
'em
order?
now, yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, just... if that's the- There's one. I don't know if I made enough, but...
May I approach? Thank you.
So I met with Mr. Mazer, and he said that a couple people at the intersection of Hill and Prospect have complained because, for a couple reasons. One, if you look at the blue line that I annotated on there, the short blue line, to the right of that, there's definitely one house, and Mr. Mazer believes two houses, though we couldn't find the outflow, where the sump pumps are going into Hill Street. And they were apparently extended. One of them, they actually drilled through the curb. My understanding is that they were authorized to do this, and Mr. Mazer can comment on that. But there's also just natural water that runs down Hill Street into Prospect. And depending on the weather and the street freezes over at the intersection there, the DPW's apparently had to go out there and salt a few times. So Mr. Mazer and I were just questioning whether there is an underground pipe, that's the red line, whether it exists or not, because if there is a storm sewer there, it's just a matter of tapping into it and putting a grill on the catch basin on the ground. If it doesn't exist, then of course it's a much more complicated, process that maybe isn't affordable. But my recommendation was just to ask the engineer to find out if the red line exists or not.
Why do you think that those were permitted, those tap-ins? Did Mr. Mazer say there were permits issued for it?
Maybe we can ask him. He did, yes.
He said that there were permits?
He didn't say there were permits. He said that they were told, it was okay. So, I didn't get into the whole history of it, and I probably should for the next meeting, and maybe we should ask them to come in.
That's on the eastern southeastern corner of Hill? Those houses on that side?
Right, on the eastern side. But it also happens when there's regular rain. It's got to do with the dynamics of the two streets and how cold the ground is. And even if those people put it onto their lawn, conceivably, if you look at their yards, they're flat by the house and then they angle down. So some of it's going to run onto the street even if they weren't through the curb. But if the red line exists, it's a cheap fix probably, but if it doesn't...
Is there such a thing in engineering?
Wow. So just my only recommendation would be just to find out if
We'd be glad to take a look at it. I'll be in town tomorrow for the DEP inspection. I'd be glad to look at it at the same time.
Right. Anybody else have anything?
Thank you.
By the way, earlier in last year, we mentioned that you have a C3 certified?
Yes, we do.
Operator on staff?
Yes, we do.
You still do?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Perhaps we should ask Mr. Sabo if he might know.
I'm sorry, C3.
Yeah, only This is storm, I don't know, is his expertise in sanitary, or is it...
No, I think he was talking about the C2
Oh,
item that was a sewer issue. Okay, moving on, proclamations, there are none, public hearings of ordinances. Open the meeting to the public. Anybody from the public? Be heard, come forward. Come on.
John Brown, 41 Stelling Avenue. Just an education on 36-13. There's a $44,000 check that's going to be cut. My question is this a, revenue-wise, is this a hit on this year's budget, or is there a accompanying revenue that goes along with this? This is a tax sales certificate. It just states that we're redeeming 43.6. My question is that a hit this year, or is there something that...
Coming in last year?
Yeah, that accompanies, in other words, is it revenue neutral, or...
I presume it is. I don't have the answer to that.
Okay.
Mr. Cucci would have the answer.
Check.
Presuming it is.
We'll ask them next time.
Yeah, I mean, it's funds that are already in.
Yeah, does it get is it a positive and a debit in the same year, or is that something that we've already seen?
I'm presuming the money came in 2012, and it's going back out under the 2012.
I would hope. Okay.
I don't have the backup on it.
Let's check next time.
You guys want to see? You could request to review, right?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Ricky here, 18 Howell Place. Mr. Mayor, on the, I guess it'd be the third sheet of the chart that's in the handout tonight regarding bills. There's one listed there about, let's see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 or 12 lines down for an Borough Enterprises for $25,000, sheet 3.
Okay.
Page 3, I'm sorry. For $25,700, I guess it says related to the storm. I was wondering if any more information as to just what that was.
That was the company that trucked away the trees that came down. There were a couple of truck loaders, probably saw them running up and down Maywood Avenue, taking the trees, dumping them in the parking lot. It was a removal company.
Okay, there's one about another 10 lines down or so, possibly the same Sterling Building Services for $23,400.
Correct. It's the same situation. It's a removal cleanup.
Oh, cleanup?
Yeah.
And the only one I have is just, again, general question I'd appreciate is, again, about eight lines down further, the one for United Computer for the network servers, I guess downstairs for the police for $38,350. Was that bid, was that looked at? I get competitive bids for that?
We did receive quotes, but that is one of the items that we is off the server and software that is exempt from public bidding because it needs to be security, and it's specific to your needs. In other words, it's not a general that you can go out and bid. We want this kind of server. It has to be specific.
Okay, it's just
Yeah.
a very large amount of money.
Actually, there is, I believe that it's an exclusion to public, local public contract laws, the certain computer.
Do you know, or is it knowledge? I guess if the police were.
Because it was done last year, this has been in the works.
Yeah, I mean, did they do any due diligence and?
Oh, yeah, there were...
Shop it, so to speak.
Absolutely. There were a number of different vendors that were looked at.
Yeah, especially if it's, if it is specific. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Ritchie.
I always look so happy when I raise my hand.
Kyle Richards, 347 Golf Avenue. So I heard you mention C2. I had the occasion to have cocktails with the previous engineer several weeks ago. And he told me he's still listed as a C2 in Trenton with the Borough of Maywood. Okay?
So I don't know why he did it.
Well, apparently he never took him off. Okay, you have to have a C2. The other thing with respect to Golf Avenue and Romaine, I don't think counting the cars, I understand that the police department won't do counting, but if you go 2 doors back on each of those corners, there's 10 children under 12 years old that live on that corner. That corner is a raceway. People go from one end of Golf Avenue to the other. They presented, there was a petition, that went around, and everybody on the street signed it, even the people down at the end by Passaic Street, because it's dangerous.
Well,
Residents are out there screaming at cars all the time.
we were looking at that, this prior council was looking at that, before the petition came in, and had the chief looking at that, and the intention is to break up that street, because it is a major cut through Golf Avenue.
We tried to talk the police into it years ago.
So the reality of it is, it's just a matter of finding where is the best location for the break. Obviously, Romaine makes the most sense because it's the only 90-degree, four-way. It's just a matter of making sure that we're putting those stop signs in the most effective place that's going to stop the problem.
My granddaughter's there on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I saw online the agenda that was on, and I know it's subject to change, but I was always a very strong advocate of interlocal services and shared services, and there was one on there for the grant writer to go to school. Okay.
That got pulled because the borough administrator was out with the flu for the past couple of days. He needs to talk to the grant company just to finalize something, but that is...
How many, have you gotten any grants?
No, but there are a bunch of grants that are involved. Applications are around.
Well, good luck. It's a lot of money each one.
Talk to the assemblyman. He's going to bring some money.
Well, I'm only allowed to talk to him an hour and a half a day. Okay. One other thing. As you know, I'm an advocate of brining, very much so. Okay. I heard some talk about you folks in Scuttlebutt, a question at Scuttlebutt, that you were thinking to go to calcium chloride. Okay. You should really look into the cost of calcium chloride as opposed to brine. Okay, calcium chloride delivered in a tank truck, okay, and I think it's out on the other side of West Patterson that they manufacture it. It's 4,500 gallons you must buy to get the best price, which is $1. Okay, brine, you can buy brine for 60 cents a gallon. Still expensive, but better. We produced our own, and it boggles my mind that it worked well for 1 year without a problem. There was some aggravation because they didn't like getting out of the truck and shutting off the brine water, okay? I chalked that up to not a lot of enthusiasm, for lack of a better term. But I also heard, and I hope this is not true, but I hope you look into it, that the equipment that was built by Jim Mazur for virtually $1,000, a little less than $1,000, that produced brine for about 25 cents with labor, okay? 25 cents with labor. That the motor or motors were not cleaned, and the salt water sat in them all year, and that's one of the reasons that they cannot produce. And I'm just telling you, it's scuttlebutt, but I would greatly appreciate it if that's looked into. And if that's what happened, the hammer should come down on somebody, because that costs the barrel of salt as opposed to brine. It makes it incredibly different. Plus, it destroys the sidewalks. Take a look at Pleasant Avenue from Oak to Maywood Avenue. You will see the pitting on the sidewalks. The main reason we went into brine was because we spent $6 million on that avenue, and we don't want to replace the sidewalks in a couple of years. So please, take a look at that, and put the signs up in Romaine. See you later.
Thank you. scuttlebutt being different from facts often, we're looking into everything, and, calcium chloride tends to work better, that's why it's more expensive, and it's a whole different system. So me and Mr. Fleischman, who's the DPW liaison this year, as well as the borough administrator, are meeting very regularly with the DPW to try to straighten all of that out, to make sure we're getting the best bang for our buck, make sure the equipment is running the best it can and efficiently. So
I was DPW commissioner for,
comment.
I was DPW for 6 years in a row, okay? I had some experience in higher offices in the borough, okay? I will tell you that communities all over this county use brine. Bergen County uses brine. It works well. The calcium chloride goes a little lower, okay, a little lower.
Well, they're two different, they're apples and oranges. For the most
There's no question it's apples and oranges, but for the cost difference, the brine is much more sensible, okay? The equipment, all that is needed to put the brine down successfully with the equipment that we have now is a very inexpensive spray attachment that goes on the back of the gravity-fed tank. That's all that's needed. You got a storm coming up. Hackensack was called to brine the main streets in town, or the hills. But if you looked at this street, Park Avenue, after that last ice storm we had, they brine all the hills coming down in Hackensack. You come down Anderson Avenue, when you got to Maywood, it went from blacktop to ice, and that's because we didn't brine ourselves. It's almost insane not to look at that equipment, and if it has been neglected, what I'm saying to you is the equipment is there. We can produce our own. Just so you guys know, we went to Edgewater, and we got the system, we got the drawings and everything for Edgewater. Edgewater uses the exact same system that we built. Tenafly, Leonia, that system is used all over the state. Is it labor intensive? Sure it is, but you put in, like for every 50 gallons of water, you put in 5 pounds of ice or whatever. All you have to do is call Edgewater. They do it successfully. Look at the hills that they have in that town. They use brine, just brine. And for us not to be using it, with the technology we have, the equipment that was built that will produce it, it's wrong. It's very wrong. It should be done. It should be looked into. And if that's been neglected, the hammer should fall.
I'll get the hammers. We're looking into it.
I'm just telling you.
Anybody else in the public? Come on up.
Timothy Panos, 853 Patterson Ave. I just wanted to thank the Mayor and Council for addressing our concerns. I'm here on behalf of the residents of Patterson Ave. Basically, I just wanted to tell you personally what our big problem was. I think the engineer said the average is 125 cars a day on our street. It's a street with 3 houses on it, so you figure about 115 of those cars are just people who are trying to avoid the light at Spring and Maywood, and they drive through in an unsafe manner, and that was our chief concern. And I want to tell you personally, that's why we were hoping to get the street that ended. I want to thank you again for taking a look at it so fast.
Thank you. Anybody else? Move on to the approval minutes. Anybody wish to approve the December 4, 2012 special meeting minutes and December 18, 2012 council meetings in closed session? Move for approval.
Second.
Roll call.
Maroney?
Yes.
Or I guess, yeah, December last year, we can't do it.
Councilman, maybe you should abstain to this.
You
weren't at that meeting. These are the minutes for the meeting prior to you.
Eisenberg, same. Neglia?
Yes.
Ballerini?
I'm going to abstain from December 4th as I was asking for that special meeting, and I will vote for approval on the December 18th minutes.
February?
Yes.
All right, take the December 4th, 2012 special meeting minutes and pull them to the next meeting. Presentation of bills and claims. Got a copy of the bills that were presented this evening. I'll move for approval.
Seconded.
Oh.
Maroney?
Yes.
Eisenberg,
Yes.
Neglia,
Yes.
Ballerini,
Yes.
Fedora.
Yes.
We have a resignation from Mary Carton as the Board of Health Secretary, effective January 31, 2013. Do I have a motion to accept the resignation?
I make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Maroni,
Yes.
Eisenberg,
Yes.
Neglia,
Yes.
Ballerini,
Yes.
Fedora.
Yes.
Okay, we have appointments. Taking care of appointment number 1. Appointment number 2, Limery Gagagliano as part-time administrative assistant effective January 29, 2013, an hourly rate of $14 per hour. And Mary Carton as a member of the Board of Health for a 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2015. Do I have a motion on the appointments?
I'll move for the appointments.
Second.
Roll call.
Maroni,
Yes.
Eisenberg,
Yes.
Neglia,
Yes.
Ballerini,
Yes.
Fedora.
Yes.
Okay, council approval of the following: removal of Renee Hanna, Benedetto De Erico, and Eugene Williams from the Maywood First Aid and Emergency Squad effective January 22, 2013, at the request of the Maywood First Aid and Emergency Squad. We also have from the Women's Club of Riverhead permission to amend an on-premises merchandise raffle and 50/50 raffle from November 7, 2012 to March 6, 2013, from the hours of 12:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. at the Maywood Inn, 122-124 West Pleasant Avenue. And from Peace for Paws, permission to hold an off-premises 50/50 raffle on April 28, 2013 at 3 p.m. at Sessions Bistro, 245 Maywood Avenue, subject to police department approval. Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Comment? Just want to let the council know that the police department has approved the request for number 3.
Peace for Paws?
Yes.
Okay. That's the memo from the chief today.
Any other comments? Roll.
Question.
Oh, sorry.
Question. Do these people on first aid squad have a certain amount of time that they have to fulfill their EMT requirements?
You know if it's for the EMT response?
It's lack of
Participation.
participation.
What about participation?
Memo, so.
Any other questions? Roll call.
Maroni,
Yes.
Eisenberg,
Yes.
Neglia,
Yes.
Ballerini,
Yes.
Fedora.
Yes.
Okay, before we get to the resolutions, we have a resolution 3713 that we discussed earlier today with Mr. Cavelli regarding the insurance deductible. Is there a motion to add this to the agenda?
I will move to add 3713 to the agenda for council vote tonight.
Second.
Roll call. This is to add it to the agenda.
Maroni,
Yes.
Eisenberg,
Yes.
Neglia,
Yes.
Ballerini,
Yes.
Fedora.
Yes.
Resolutions by title and consideration of the
Resolution 3613, resolution authorizing the redemption of the tax sale certificate for Block 42, Lot 17, for Robert D. Rothman Pension Plan. Resolution 3713, resolution authorizing action on the DOL, EPL premium options offered through XL Insurance Company and the Joint Insurance Fund. Yes.
We have a motion on the resolutions.
Move for adoption.
Second that.
Roll call.
Maroni,
Yes.
Eisenberg,
Yes.
Neglia,
Yes.
Ballerini,
Yes.
Fedora.
Yes.
And no ordinances to introduce. Committee reports.
No report this time.
Councilman Eisenberg.
Well, I gave part of my report while the engineer was here. The other part was I had the pleasure of meeting with the borough administrator. She brought me up to speed as a new member of the council and told me a lot about what she's doing. And we got into a discussion about the telephone system. I pointed out to her that there's some confusion in reaching the tax assessor, and that was going to be looked into. The prompts on the menus are not straightforward if you go a certain route. You can get to them one way, but not the other way. So she's going to continue clarifying some of the menus on that. She was also looking at some alternative, not telephone equipment providers, but telephone services, the lines. And I brought up to her that she should take a look at voice over IP phones. She had some concern, which I surmised as well, that that may not be up to the standards for a police department, and she was going to speak with the chief and see if there was any issue there. But I showed her with a well-known voice over IP carrier that it's about $2,000 a month cheaper than what the borough's paying right now. Just to point out that probably most of you have voice over IP phones, because if you have your phones through Fios or cable, you're on voice over IP, you're not on a copper line. The benefits of voice over IP also are that they can transition various different buildings. For example, we could have a phone at the pool and at the DPW, and you could even maybe get together with the school board and the library, and with 3-digit extensions, you can dial from one to the other, you can transfer calls very inexpensively.
Can I ask you a question? I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm not familiar with it, but if the power, is the issue with the power, if the power goes out, is that what the issue with the police is? Or?
I don't know. She was looking into that, so, you know, if it turns out the police department doesn't allow it, this is moot, but...
I can address that for you. I've reviewed this option with not only the police department, but with the OEM and prior discussions. The voice over IP phone systems are not suitable for emergency use.
What was the reasoning behind that?
Fios only has 8 hours.
So there were several reasons beyond just the limitations that Councilman Maroney's pointing out. We have a generator, so power is a secondary issue. It's quality of service, it's security. These are much easier networks to breach than typical phone lines are. So there's Chris Huddle, who runs OEM for the Borough of Maywood, works with the Department of Homeland Security. I discussed this with him last year. They basically have a negative stance on voice over IP for emergency services.
Okay. As well as the Centrex lines that we have involved still that are necessary to be in place.
Right.
There's other concerns as well, which are equipment concerns, which are that voice over IP phones utilize an Ethernet jack, whereas regular phones use an RJ11 or RJ14 jack. So there might be wiring concerns as well, but at some point in time, I think that's where everything's going. In fact, in many parts of the country, you can't even get copper service anymore. They're just abandoning it completely. But maybe now's not the time. But
Dr. Megley.
Just one quick thing. At the Board of Health meeting this week, just wanted to remind you that Wednesday, January 30th, free rabies shots for your dogs and your cats at the DPW on East Hunter. The doctor from Maywood is going to be there giving the shots for free. Also, at that point, if you wish to buy your dog tag once the shot is given, because don't forget, if you want to use the Maywood dog park, you need to have a dog tag. So again, bring your dog or your cat on Wednesday the 6th between 6 and 8 and get a free rabies shot. Thank you, that's all.
Okay. Councilman Bellerin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple things. With regard to municipal court, just got the report from the administrator that the disbursements to the borough for December was $17,022.33, which brings the year-to-date total to $244,295.16. That's against the budget of $185,000 for 2012. So we do have a surplus in revenues there of $59,295.16. As the Council of 2012 approved the resolution authorizing the shared services agreement with the municipal court. As you'll recall, that plan would have Maywood pay $70,000 a year to Paramus while retaining all the monies that are produced through fines and cost recovery. Expected savings are $100,000 at a minimum for the first year and every year thereafter. The day-to-day function of the court has been transitioned to Paramus effective yesterday. and there will be Maywood court staff here for the next several weeks to facilitate the transition. There are posters, directions down in the lobby of Borough Hall to help with folks who are coming here to pay tickets. With regard to the police department, sort of straddling the Board of Ed, there was a well-attended school safety meeting at Maywood Avenue School on January 9th. I don't know if you were touch on that in your report. There were residents came to meet with representatives of the school board, police department, mayor and council. Superintendent Jordan overviewed current procedures related to preparedness for lockdown incidents. Chief Pegg discussed the ongoing and the new efforts of the police department, both to monitor security, deter criminal activity at the school. Attendees there discussed several different options regarding security guards, discussions about state guidelines, etc. There's even a suggestion by Councilman Eisenberg to look into gas in the schools during a lockdown. Thought that was kind of interesting. On January 17th, there was a much publicized robbery at the Maywood Avenue Shell Station. Just want to report that on the 22nd, the Maywood PD charged an individual from Hackensack with the robbery. Congratulations to the Detective Bureau on swift work in the case. With regard to the appointment of probationary officer Cook, I think the chief had mentioned that there is a second spot. Any individuals who are interested in filling that vacancy are encouraged to contact the police department. The Board of Ed will be holding a meeting tomorrow night at the Maywood Avenue School, and the planning board will be holding its first regular meeting on the 24th with reorganization on the agenda. That's it, sir.
Council President Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if you've noticed that the ambulance 26 is out in the parking lot. It's leaking gasoline right now, so they moved it out of the bay. I'm going to request, Roberta Zion said, I'm going to request that the administrator that perhaps the DPW can siphon the gas out of there so it could be brought back into the bay, because as it sits outside, it's not good. It's an older vehicle. I don't want it getting any more damage. I've requested of the ambulance squad a list of all the defects that they perceive with that, and we're going to be giving that to a mechanic, a qualified mechanic, and seeing if and how much it will cost to repair the vehicle. One of the problems is there was a discussion last night at the ambulance squad meeting about safety concern, and several members have indicated that they will not drive the vehicle, so this has to be taken care of, and we have to see what the problems are with that. There's a problem with the ambulance squad's radios. They're too low at this point. Since they did the narrow banding, they switched over. Tomorrow, someone from regional will be in the building at 15 Park. They'll be picking up the radios and they'll be servicing them, and we'll find out if that's successful. Tomorrow night is the Board of Trustees library meeting, and I will be attending that, and I'll report on further on their request for the budget. We have that in our packets, but I'll have some more information on that at the next meeting. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Briefly, in my report, the Borough has sent over a certificate of recognition to Visitation Academy, interparochial school in Paramus, which several members of citizens of Maywood attend. They were awarded the 2012 Blue Ribbon status for excellent education, a very prestigious award by the United States Department of Education. So we congratulate them and all the students from Maywood and throughout the region who attend there. Talking with the grant writer, she's pursuing the CANCA fund, which is being refunded to pay for background checks for all the volunteers, coaches in Maywood, and swimming pool employees, recreation employees for the summer rec program, so that we can proceed with implementing background checks for all employees and volunteers that are dealing with children in the borough. The Green Team will be meeting next week for our first reorganization meeting. We are hopefully going to complete certification for the Sustainable Jersey program early this year. We're also going to move forward with the tree farm and community garden, which was constructed. late last year, the beds will be it's anticipated that the beds at the community garden will be assigned or taken over by volunteer groups such as Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, Memorial School children, and each be responsible for a garden bed so that we can teach about sustainability and gardening and certainly move forward with utilizing the $2,000 grant we've received for the tree farm to start planting our own trees for municipalities, which can be transplanted in a few years once they grow throughout the borough. Met with the community, Chamber of Commerce and the SID during the last couple of weeks. Chamber of Commerce is proposing a street fair for April 21 and August 18. It will be up to the council to approve the closing of Pleasant Avenue for those days, and we'll do that at an upcoming meeting, or entertain that at an upcoming meeting. The discussions that I've had with the SID and the Chamber of Commerce, as everybody's aware, the SID collects about $40,000 from all the property owners on Pleasant Avenue, and which is applied to pay a bond which the borough has maintained and is paying for the parking lot next to what used to be the hardware store. I'm going to submit for the council's consideration that the borough take over those payments and relieve the SID of the $40,000 annual payments going forward. It is my opinion that a vibrant downtown not only serves the people who own property on that strip, but certainly serves the entire municipality. And I think that that is something that we should consider and look into doing. That being said, the borough administrator and I are going to meet with people in Trenton about historic preservation grants to see if we can obtain funding this year. If the council wishes to proceed that way, to preserve the historic home on the corner of Central Avenue and Maywood Avenue. That's about all I have, other than Borough of Maywood and towns across the country are participating in the National Wear Red Day for Women campaign, which is taking place on February 1st, 2013. Friday, February 1, 2013, along with the American Heart Association, municipalities are taking part in what is called Paint New Jersey Red, to bring attention to the #1 killer of New Jersey and American females, which is cardiovascular disease. Employees at the Borough of Maywood are joining the health departments throughout New Jersey and the Maywood Health Department by wearing something red and going red for Friday, February 1st, 2013. This is the 9th Annual American Heart Association National Wear Red Day for Women, and it is intended to raise awareness of the #1 health threat facing women today. So participate in that, wear something red on February 1st, and that's all I have. Mr. Attorney,
I have no report, Steve.
Anybody have anything to close session?
I do not.
You do?
I do not.
All right, then I will entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.